Good morning and welcome to our Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, September 26th. And if we could have a roll call, please.
Chairman Madrone, Supervisor Bohn.
Yep.
Supervisor Bushnell.
Good morning.
Supervisor Arroyo.
Here.
Supervisor Wilson.
Here.
And I'm not on the record, I'm sorry. Supervisor Madrone.
Present.
Thank you.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Madam CAO, do we have any modifications to the agenda?
Good morning, Chair Madrone. There is one modification. Item D1 is being pulled for discussion.
Great, okay. So we'll bring that up and discuss that after the consent. Is there any clarifications, questions, or comments from the board on the consent agenda before I go to public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and go to public comment then on our consent agenda. And if you do want to comment on the consent agenda, please let us know which item you're speaking on, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board. Going to our Zoom first, there is one caller, but no hand up at this point in time. So we'll go to those here in the audience today that would like to comment on our consent agenda. Anybody here today? Seeing no movement towards the podium, we will go ahead and bring it back to the board for any other discussion on the consent agenda and or a motion.
I would like to make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Bushnell, second by Supervisor Wilson. And let's do a roll call vote, please.
Sorry about that. My fingers are a
Oh,
little
does
slow.
everybody, do you all have your voting thing or not?
I don't know if super.
Not logged in. Okay,
Yeah.
let's do a roll call, please.
We'll start with Supervisor Bohn,
Yes.
Supervisor Bushnell,
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone,
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo,
Yes.
and Supervisor Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Whoops.
Okay, that's a record for the last 6 months on the consent. No proclamations today. So at this point, we'll go to items pulled from consent, I believe. Actually, let's see. Yes, items pulled from consent, and D1 has been pulled, and Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you. I asked Waylon to come over. I had some questions about this item. If you look at the contract for consecutively 3 years prior, 3 years coming up, there's no increase in the amounts, and I find that a little odd with given everything in the world has increased, including fuel. And so I had a conversation whether we were recovering our costs fully doing these inspections, and so I'm going to ask Waylon to kind of update our board, and then maybe we can give him some direction.
Good morning, Chairman Joan, members of the board. My name is Waylon Shaw with representing the Agriculture Department. So looking at our annual financial statements for that budget line for our cannabis inspections, the last couple fiscal years, the expenditures did outweigh what revenue we're receiving for those inspections. So it is a valid concern, I believe. And I agree with Supervisor Bushnell that it needs to be looked at.
So what is the process? Do we contact the state and ask for increase?
So what I learned this morning, last night and this morning from Waylon is that we get a lump sum for 3 years. And what he did through the budget process was allocated around $42,000 a year per year for the inspections. And he, in my discussions with him this morning, they're utilizing around $73,000 a year for inspections, so they're exceeding that amount. But the amounts that they're giving is $142,000. So what his suggestion is, and with this board's, consideration, is that they do the inspections to not exceed the $142,000, and that we, do inspections up to that amount because it's not segregated. He segregates it by budget for him yearly, but then that we maybe authorize him to try to negotiate with the state, which he had already anticipated doing next week, to see if we could, if they could get an increase or If he gets to the $142,000, then he stops doing inspections and then contacts the state, the DCC, and says, I'm at my max. And are you interested in having me do more inspections?
Okay. Supervisor Bohn?
And we don't do solo inspections, we're doing dual inspections. We're doing our inspection and their inspection time. So there is an offset of cost for us, because otherwise, if we weren't doing theirs and DCC decided to do them themselves, then we wouldn't be getting that money at all, right?
That's correct.
So, and I don't know how it's broken out, but I know when did we start doing this?
Back in 2017, I believe,
Yeah.
is when we first started.
And I remember when we first did this with Jeff, he said this was going to be a great offset and cover some of our costs, because we were there anyway, and it was a duplication of efforts. It's basically, we're checking the same thing for the state that we check for the county.
We don't,
So-
sorry to cut you off, Supervisor Bohn, but
No, you're fine.
we don't assist. Previously, we were doing it in conjunction with planning and building, and we no longer do that. It's just strictly for the DCC. But while we're out there doing the DCC inspections, we're able to do pesticide use enforcement inspections, as well as test their scales as well. And so we try to be as efficient as possible when we're out there.
Okay. So the format's changed since we implemented it in
Yeah.
2017 quite.
The revenue that they provide has not changed, though. It's based on site.
Understand.
And number of licenses per site. And so staff really has to actually submit a report for each one of those licenses. So for instance, if there's 5 licenses on one site, they have to fill out 5 different reports for each one of those separate licenses.
Understand.
And so that's something that I do believe a couple of years ago was discussed, is to go straight to a work plan similar to our other CDFA programs, where we submit a work plan based on our hours, mileage, that type of stuff. But I haven't heard anything about that.
And are the number of inspections going down or up?
It's really up to them. They send us a list of the sites that they want inspected. We don't choose those sites.
What are those numbers going up or down?
They were actually going down based on the last couple of years with the consolidation. There was a pause in there between when they were giving us a list.
Significantly, or 10%, 20%?
I would say about 20%. It's just really dependent on what we can get done and what they give us on their time frame as well.
I'm playing devil's advocate. I think you should get more money for what you're doing, and more we can get from the state, the better. But I can also say, well, we're paying you the same and you're doing 20% less. I just know how they're gonna work it like they do with all our other programs that we accept.
But current year, this season, you ramped back up, is that correct?
Yes, they are. They do anticipate giving us more.
Yeah. So the decrease in the inspections was due to the DCC combining. They went through us, they combined 5 units into one, and so during that 3-month period, they didn't do any inspections. So that was why. And then current year, they have ramped back up and are going to, and Wayland's units have been doing more inspections. And so when you look at the contract, it was the same amount for the first year, and it will be the same amount 6 years consecutive. And so the other thing that bothered me was that the licensees, cannabis licensees it's a built-in percentage increase for each cannabis licensee that increases each year, for cost of increases. But that's not passed on. It doesn't seem right to me that it's not passed on to the people that would be doing the inspections and so forth and so on. When you say to the cannabis folks, oh, well, you have a cost increase that's just built in because things, inflation, et cetera, but then you don't pass that on to the folks that are doing that work. Mm-hmm. And so I would like this board, this program is very important, and the cultivators appreciate Wayland's work and his staff's work. I get a lot of compliments, I'm sure this board does as well, on how good they do and appreciate the inspection process that they do. I would just like to authorize Wayland to negotiate with the state, or to engage those conversations to see if there's room for improvement cost-wise there, and then to not exceed the $142,000 in inspections.
Okay, great. I appreciate those considerations. Any other board member have comments before we go to the public? Supervisor Wilson.
Just a question as to the suggestion from Supervisor Bushnell, which is or it's a question, are you asking us to modify the contract? No, you're saying just work up to the contract amount. Is that okay within should we have our attorneys review that? Is that an okay thing? Because I don't know what the obligation is with relationship to the state when they ask us or give us a list. What's our actual obligation to produce and to do, to produce through that list?
I believe what Supervisor Bushnell is proposing at this point is to direct staff to enter into negotiations with the state regarding an amendment to the agreement if necessary. So if the agreement were to, as you say, not allow for us to go to the cap and then stop, we would be asking the state to amend that in order to allow for it to happen. Then staff would come back with an amendment to the agreement if necessary.
And if the state doesn't agree to the amendment?
If the state does not agree to the amendment, then staff could come back to your board and go from that point forward. Or we would be bound to comply with the terms and conditions of the agreement as approved today if the state does not agree to an amendment.
Well, that puts us on the short end. I mean, generally speaking, it's not a great negotiating position to be in when you've signed into a contract that, you see what I'm saying? And then when you're asking for an amendment on a signed contract, I guess, how much would it slow us down if we were to postpone this particular contract until we get an amendment that makes this work for us financially?
I will defer to Waylon on that. I have not been involved in these negotiations up to this point.
Okay, and then we'll have Supervisor Bushnell has a clarification as well.
So there,
Let's do that first, yeah.
Waylon, is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so there are a couple options, and so right now we are out of a contract, and so we're not doing inspections because we need to sign this contract. So the options could be that we sign this contract, and Waylon thinks that we could, with this board, work up to that $142,000 and then he would and authorize him to say, we won't do inspections past that $142,000. Or we could not sign the contract today and postpone it, and he could have negotiations next week, which he intended to do, with the state and say, hey, we've been working past our allotted amounts of money. What do you think about, increase, or we're only going to work up to the $142,000 and then be done. And so those are the options for today. We don't have to, we can postpone, and that is one of the options that Waylon said could happen, and bring this contract back. We're currently not doing inspections because we're out of contract already.
That second option certainly would give us a stronger point of negotiation, it would seem, as pointed out by Supervisor Wilson. So I'm glad you discussed
Yep.
a couple of options. So any further clarification before we go to the public? Supervisor Wilson, were you done?
No, but I'll take a pause.
Okay, Supervisor Arroyo.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't clear, actually, once we, started discussing this about, so Exhibit B has the budget detail, but I'm just not seeing the things like mileage and the other expenses. Are those just based on a schedule that we submit to them, or how do we do that?
No, that was developed initially
Okay.
when we first started doing the back when it was Cal Cannabis, and it's
Sure.
none of those were, I don't think, taken into account as far as mileage and actual staff time. It's just based purely on one site, and the number of licenses per site is how we're reimbursed.
Okay, because it says it's a flat fee per site, but then the staff report says all costs for personnel, mileage, and supplies are covered. Is that part of that $400 or whatever?
That
per
was my
site?
understanding when they came up with a formula
Okay.
to incorporate all that in there. But a conversation that Supervisor Bushnell and I had was that it was more tailored towards the southern counties where all of the cultivation sites are kind of conglomerated into one spot or in one area, which makes it, more efficient for them to go out and do multiple licenses on multiple sites in one area, whereas our geography, I don't believe, was taken into account.
Absolutely, yeah, you go by Highway 158 in Monterey, which some of us did last week, and there they all are, all the greenhouses, right? And whereas ours are spread out all over a very large area, so that's common sense there. Anything else, Supervisor Arroyo?
I was just trying to understand the kind of
Yeah.
that statement about all those expenses being included, because I think that is at the heart of what you're saying, is that these expenses are growing over time and our agreement amount is not. So anyway, I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, and then back to Supervisor Wilson, are you good?
Yeah, just, when this comes back to the board with an amendment, which it sounds like it may or may not do, but when this comes back to the board, I would like within the staff report some summary of the differential between what we estimate we have done, in terms of our cost versus what we've recovered over the last, was it 3 or 4 years that this program's been happening? I know it's a bit of a, a bit of work with relationship to doing that sort of accounting, but I think it would be relevant information to know. I think we should know what it is that, what that differential is, and if it's been changing over time. Thanks.
Well, and I assume that that information is exactly what you'll develop in order to make the negotiations with the state. You got to be able to show something, right?
Yeah, that won't be difficult. That's already a line in my annual financial statement, and it's all broken down into direct labor costs, indirect supplies, all of
Perfect.
those aspects that go into it. So I could provide that
Sounds great.
tomorrow if need be.
All right, let's go ahead and hear from the public, and then we'll bring it back to the board. Again, going to Zoom first. Do we have any hands up? And Zoom, no, we do not. So we'll go to those here in the audience today. Anybody wish to comment on this specific item, please come forward and let us hear your thoughts, and you'll have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. Is it possible to just do inspections every other year instead of every year? Is that just that's it, that's just my question.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to respond to that, please?
I think it would be possible, but like I said earlier, it's really up to the state providing those inspection lists and what they're prioritizing as
Okay.
cultivation sites needing to be inspected.
Okay, so short form, we're going to negotiate to try and get better reimbursement, and then go from there. Supervisor, we'll bring it back to the board, seeing no other public comment. Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you. So I want to ask CAO Hayes if you have a recommendation. My concerns are that we're working, exceeding our amounts of monies that we're getting from the state, and so those are my concerns, and Wayland's as well. And so do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I'm reviewing the contract and I don't see an easy exit clause for us, which is concerning for me. It does allow for the state to easily exit, but not for the county, which would, potentially put us into a 3-year obligation with the state. And, as you all know, I hate to turn away money, which is my angst in this conversation, but I do read this to say that it's a set amount per inspection. So I also have some concerns that we're going to be able to say that when we hit the 42,000, that's it, because we're still obligated to do a set amount of inspections also. So those two numbers also need to match up. So my suggestion would be that your board hold off on approving this, and that we ask the state to have a meeting with Wayland, and I'm happy to participate in that meeting as well, and that we express our concerns and return to your board, hopefully at the October 17th meeting with additional information as to whether or not we are able to negotiate with the state.
Wayland, you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Whatever direction the board wants to go, I'm fine with that.
Great. Okay.
What-
Supervisor Bohn had a comment?
Waylon, can you ask Mendocino and some of the other counties what they're doing about this? Because, we're not out here by ourselves. So instead of doing all this legwork and everything else, have they got increases? Have they asked for increases? Have they been successful or anything like that? Have they cut back their inspections to match what they're getting compensated for?
Yeah,
So
I can ask them, definitely.
I think because
Supervisor
there's
Bohn.
probably another 6, 8 counties, Santa Barbara, all those are under the same auspice. So if you could if you could jump in and see what they're doing and see if, you know, before we start knocking our head against the wall and realizing, hey, they're not gonna allow that, so.
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Supervisor Wilson.
Thanks. I just want to make the motion to continue this item to date uncertain, and thank Supervisor Bushnell for her eagle eye on this item, so.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, Supervisor Wilson made a motion and seconded by Supervisor Bushnell. Seeing no further, Supervisor Bushnell?
I just want to thank Waylon because I really threw him for a loop and last night at 8 o'clock, and really appreciate him talking with me last night and this morning, and also Alicia, so appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for the quick response, everybody. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Supervisor
Is-
Bushnell.
Hayes is
Yes.
working.
Supervisor Arroyo.
Yes.
Supervisor Bohn. Yep. Supervisor Madrone.
Yes.
And Supervisor Wilson.
Yep.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you for that discussion. Thank you, Waylon. And next, we're going to go to public comment on non-agenda items. So this is the opportunity to talk to the board on non-agenda items, and you'll have 3 minutes. Looking at my Zoom, and I do have one hand up, and that is 0116. *6 to unmute. There you go. Welcome.
There you go. Welcome. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, this is Ash Teeter. I wanted to talk about like a recent bill, it's like AB 957 in California, where it revolves around like parents' rights and gender affirmation. And one question I saw that got raised, something I read is like, if genitals don't define gender, how does removing them affirm it? And looking at like risks in equal comparisons of like the hormone treatments, potential health risks from major surgeries, medical procedures, and/or medications in this area. Then you must understand the current social momentum spreading this gender fluid message. Due to these possibilities, I decided to look for studies to show potential health risks. And this is when I went to HSU. But before doing serious research, I read an article suggesting that the drugs used as puberty blockers are the same drugs used to chemically castrate sex offenders. This sparked my curiosity to look up peer-reviewed studies discussing this from one end to the other. First, I looked for a study on the puberty blocking drugs so I could get an exact name to make sure I was comparing the correct drugs. The journal article I found was lead by Leon Mahata discussing gender-affirming pharmacological interventions. The article discusses problems and controversies with the hormone treatments, including treatment age, duration, safety, and cost. The article provides a precise name for the hormone treatment commonly referred to as puberty blocker, the gonadotropin-releasing hormone, GnRH. So searching for the GnRH castration of sex offenders produced the hit on the HSU's online library. I found an article by Alexandra Lewis on the gonadotropin-releasing hormone treatment for sex offenders. A systemic review. The study involved 323 participants, sex offenders who had given the GnRH for a minimum period of 1
30
month.
seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. And basically, like some of the side effects visible in the sample included limited weight gain, erectile dysfunction, painful erections, asymptia, lethargy, erective genital growth, back pain, cough, liver markers, reduction of bone density. So all these are concerning things when the state's leveraging parents' custody in the bill that I mentioned originally. Thank you.
Thank you, commenter. And next, we have 7718. *6 to unmute. There you go. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Ken Sawatsky, zooming in from Mexico. If you're ever trying to Zoom a meeting down here with Magic Jack, it doesn't work, but I do have my cell phone. I just wish to speak a little bit about some goings on in Blue Lake. We have some water tanks that need to be replaced in Blue Lake. And so we've applied for a grant, and this is really important, the city to have its water tanks replaced and functional. Unfortunately, it appears that the city hasn't taken into consideration the fact that it has to have 100 foot of defensible space around these tanks. So now the city's put in a position where it's going to need considerably larger size areas to have their tanks. And I can totally understand the 100 foot defensible, 30 foot clear. Right now, the existing tank is within 10 foot of what is a easement to be on, and it had brush right up against its wooden tank, or it did the other day. So anyway, this is a major concern. I don't know whether the county participates in this or will have the city's back anyway, but they're either going to have to go through more eminent domain or else do a deal with someone who's willing probably to do a deal to enable them to put those, hopefully, two tanks together on one side. So the other thing was I did have a mention that the city of Blue Lake staff had reached out to the DA, the sheriff, and supervisors, Humboldt County supervisors, regarding what we can do to deal with RVs that are being lived in improperly, specifically Caraway, but they were chased out of there. They fortunately moved out of there, but then they just moved to other places within the county and city. So this is a problem, a county problem, and we do need to develop some form of a safe park system or something for these RVs, make sure people are living in safe conditions, and get them off our streets and out of our woods. Some of them don't have proper facilities, to use. They don't function correctly as far as restroom and things, so all kinds of violations happen. But hopefully the county will work together with the city of Blue Lake, and I'm going to reach out to a few supervisors and see if they've been contacted by the city of Blue Lake, city manager, Mandy Major, regarding this, and also the DA and the sheriff. Thank you for my opportunity to speak on this important topic today.
Thank you, commenter from Mexico. And that is the last hand up in Zoom, so we'll go to those here in the audience today. Anybody that would like to speak on non-agenda items with the board, please come forward at this time. Welcome again.
Thank you. Last Friday, California Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill requiring human drivers on board self-driving trucks. I, for one, support human truck drivers, and I don't believe self-driving trucks have the capability of driving on our roads. I was wondering if the board had anything to say about allowing human truckers on board computer-controlled trucks.
Thank you for your comment, and as always, or typically, we don't public comment on non-agenda items, but something may come up in the future. Thank you. Anybody else here today with comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we'll close that item, and at this point, we're going to go to department reports. We have one item, and that is Humboldt County Americans with Disabilities Act Compliance Project Update. I see Travis is here in the audience. Welcome, Travis.
Morning, board.
Great. And before we start, I just want to thank all the staff involved in this for their incredible efforts over the last several years to make things far more accessible for everybody in our community. So thank you for that work.
Well, good morning, Chair Madrone and members of the board. My name is Travis Smith. Let me start over. Good morning, Chair Madrone and members of the board. My name is Travis Smith, and I am the project manager with the ADA compliance team here at the County of Humboldt. And I would like to thank you for receiving the ADA update today. And so if we want to start with our presentation. Awesome. So a brief history about Humboldt County's ADA compliance project. September of 2016, the county entered into a consent decree with the Department of Justice, which was to bring county programs, services, and activities specifically identified into compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, with 36-month time periods. All county facilities listed on that had to be brought into ADA compliance within that time frame, and then subsequently we had to bring in the remainder of our facilities into ADA compliance. In March of 2020, the Department of Justice chose not to renew the terms of the consent decree due to the county's progress in ADA barrier remediation, planned removal of remaining barriers, and our commitment to making our programs, services, and activities accessible to all and to be ADA compliant. In June of 2021, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors adopted the ADA compliance plan that laid out the county's planned approach to accessibility over the next 20 years. Currently, the ADA compliance team consists of 3 positions: myself as the project manager, Mr. Lindsay Day, who is our ADA carpenter, and we have an administrative analyst position. Next slide, please. The ADA compliance team has completed more than $13.1 million in ADA compliance project work from 2018 to 2023 and is on track to complete almost $8.3 million of project work in the current fiscal year. The ADA capital improvement plan estimates this project will total over $49.8 million before it is complete. These numbers are slightly different than the figures in the staff report due to the receipt of additional invoices, actual bids, and updated project estimates since the staff report was drafted. Next slide, please. The ADA compliance team has completed 48% of total barriers to access and 92% of barriers listed specifically in the Department of Justice consent decree. It should be noted that these barrier counts are a snapshot in time during the consent decree and do not necessarily reflect additional barriers discovered after the fact. Also, an access barrier can be defined as a simple sign, or it can be as complex as all of the showers inside of 11 housing units inside the jail. Next slide, please. Certified ADA coordinators. The county currently has 11 certified ADA coordinators who meet quarterly to address issues and share information around the ADA. Each of the certified ADA coordinators play varying roles in the county and have different areas of expertise. Title II relates to accessibility of county programs, services, and activities, whereas Title I relates to accessibility relating to employment. And as you can see on the display there, we have a lot of varying areas of expertise within the county. Next project, please. RB, next slide, please. Up. So I think we might have advanced a couple of slides there. Up. Clam Beach one, I guess. Yeah, let's go. There we go. So ADA compliance, the ADA compliance team completed some projects in fiscal year 22-23, which include and are not limited to the Clam Beach County Park mat. This slide shows an image of the beach mat and a photo submitted by Hannah Carpillo of her and her aunt visiting the beach. Bonnie Lukowitz, Bay Area Outreach Recreation Program Manager, and Access Northern California. That's where we got I'm sorry, my notes are off here. So this project started out with beach access wheelchairs, and only for our team to discover that the sand out at Clam Beach was too fine and soft to accommodate beach wheelchairs from the parking lot to the hard-packed sand. It turns out the beach mat provides for greater access to the beach, not only for wheelchair users, but for those who are users of other mobility devices such as walkers, crutches, and canes, and those who may be unsteady on their feet, and those who have low vision and or are blind. This project has received a lot of positive feedback from the community, including Tri-County Independent Living's Assisted Technology Coordinator, who is low vision, and stated, "The uneven terrain of typical beaches makes her fall. For the first time ever, she felt secure and safe independently walking on the beach, and this unique mat system will benefit the disabled community." End quote. A coworker took her elderly parents to visit the beach and use the beach mat. Her mother stated that she never thought that she would be able to walk on the beach again. Individuals of all ages and abilities enjoy the ease of access the beach map provides. Clam Beach County Park is now, we believe Clam Beach County Park is now the most most accessible beach in California. The ADA team would like to thank Public Works, County Parks for their assistance with this project. Ongoing maintenance of this mat will be a combined effort between the ADA team and County Park staff. Next slide. 727 Cedar Street. 727 Cedar is the public health building in Garberville and is located across the street from the newly constructed Garberville campus. The total project cost for this location was $328,000. ADA work included and is not limited to an accessible service counter, restrooms, handrails, and parking. With this project, approximately $177,000, or just over half of the project costs, were allocated towards deferred maintenance and other improvements that were paid by the department and included exterior and interior painting that was aged in chipping, removal of carpeting that was extremely worn and replaced with new flooring, and replacement of exterior security lighting was completed, making this location accessible to persons with disabilities and improving their work environment for staff. The ADA team completed the $1.5 million jail showers project. This project consisted of new ADA accessible restrooms and shower facilities in 11 inmate housing units. Approximately $250,000 of unanticipated deferred maintenance repairs were made as part of this project, including the removal and installation of 28 toilets, replacement of leaking non-accessible shower units of many of the housing units, the overhaul of deteriorated piping, the replacement of worn flooring and broken shower partitions, new paint, and repairs to leaking exterior walls. This project was particularly challenging because the Humboldt County Correctional Facility is operational 24 hours a day and is generally filled to capacity with approximately 417 inmates each day. The Humboldt County Correctional Facility was built with security in mind and is constructed out of uncompromising materials such as steel and concrete, which are difficult construction mediums to make modifications to, especially in a facility that is always occupied and always operational. The COVID-19 pandemic provided some unique benefits for the completion of this project as inmate populations decreased during this time. This allowed staff the ability to close down entire housing units for accessibility improvements with limited disruption to inmates and staff. The ADA team would like to thank Lieutenant Dennis Griffin and the correctional facility staff, as well as Wiley Buck and Public Works Facilities team for their expertise and coordination efforts that helped make this project a success. All right, next slide. So hydration stations. One of the requirements under the ADA is to install and provide high-low drinking fountains. The ADA team took that step a little further in an effort to be more conscientious about our environment and to improve the working environment for your employees by adding hydration stations for public and employees to fill their personal water bottles. So far, we have installed 12 in the following locations: the Ag Building, Public Health, ACV, Courthouse, Hope Center, IT, Mental Health, Garberville Complex, and Clark Complex. To date, we have saved approximately 245,000 plastic bottles from the landfill, with half of that number coming from the airport alone. All right, next slide. 2024 projects. So, the 23-24 fiscal year is going to be a very busy year for the ADA team, starting with the Courthouse 4th Street ADA modification project, which is estimated to be complete December 29th, 2023. This project consists of new sliding doors on the 4th Street entrance to the courthouse, accessible parking. Additionally, approximately $248,000 of the $534,000 project will include deferred maintenance and other improvements, which include replacement of the moisture barrier under the parking area, installation of security bollards, new flooring inside the security and screening area, as well as new paint in those areas as well. Next slide. Next project that we're working on also is the Courthouse Restrooms ADA modification project, which is estimated to complete June 30th, 2024. This project consists of full renovations and modernizations of all 20 public restrooms in the courthouse and includes remediation of all barriers to access in 12 ADA gender-specific restrooms, converting the 2 small multi-user restrooms located on the 3rd floor to 2 single-user all-gender restrooms, with one being fully ADA compliant. This project will perform deferred maintenance and other building improvements by full renovation to the remaining 6 non-ADA compliant restrooms located on the first, second, and third floors. Next slide, please. Next project we're also working on is the Auditor Controller Tenant Improvement Project, and our Auditor Controller Tenant Improvement and ADA Modification Project, which is estimated to complete March of 2024. This project is estimated to be $863,000 and consists of a new configuration that allows for better use of available space and will include accessible and universal design, new flooring, ceilings, and lighting. Room 130 will be the temporary swing space location for auditor controller staff while we do the renovations in their current home. This is due to the fact that auditor controller staff work with confidential and sensitive information, and because of this, the project will include the construction of permanent dividing wall and other minor modifications to provide a separate and secure space for the CDTFA and auditor controller space to independently operate. At the conclusion of the project, auditor controller staff will return to room 126, and room 130 will be used by the Humboldt County Human Resources Department as space as approved by the board on April 18th, 2023. $163,422 of this project will be committed to deferred maintenance and other improvements. The next project that we're taking under this year is the DA flooring project, which is currently in the design phase and expected to bid soon. Work for this project is anticipated to begin in December 2023. This project was a smaller public works capital project, and the ADA team was happy to help with this project to remove barriers to access from the lifting carpet by replacing the flooring. This project is funded through the DA's office. Another project that we're excited about this year is the Big Lagoon Day Use and Campground ADA Modification Project, which is a partnership with Public Works, the ADA team, and county parks to perform ADA, deferred maintenance, and other improvements at the park. This project is currently in design and is estimated to be complete in June of 2024. The Ag Building ADA Modification Project has been placed on hold. This ADA the ADA compliance team is in coordination with Public Works Capital Projects and will be working on the weights and measures building, ensuring that the building is ADA compliant, deferred maintenance issues are resolved, and other improvements are made. ADA will take the lead on this project, and it is estimated to be complete in June of 2024. Another project that's underway is the Ferndale Veterans Building ADA Modification Project, which is expected to complete March 30th, 2024. This project will consist of path of travel upgrades, restrooms, doorways, and other barriers to access. Another project that we're working on right now that's going to be put back out to bid again is the Economic Development Child Support Services Tenant Improvement Project, which is estimated to complete sometime towards the end of next year. This project will create a fully ADA accessible public-facing office location for ECDEV and reduce the child support services footprint in the building, making this office ADA compliant. The child support services portion of this project is funded by the department. Another project we're working on is the juvenile hall access, remaining juvenile hall access barriers, which are estimated to be complete December 15th of 2023. The ADA compliance team will take the lead on the remaining barriers at the juvenile hall facility. Through the state library's Building Forward grant, the ADA compliance team will take the lead on the Fortuna Library's ADA modification project in partnership with the City of Fortuna. This project is estimated to be complete June 30th, 2024. I want to throw a little shout out to Lindsay Day, who's our ADA carpenter. He has completed several projects here in the county. Some of those include the ADA or the ACV car rental service counters and the risk management service counters, as well as security upgrades to the Board of Supervisors office there. So a lot of the nice work that's around the county has been completed by Lindsay himself. So one of the other projects that we're working on right now is the Clark Complex ADA Modification Project, which is estimated to complete November 30th, 2023. Construction of ADA compliant stairs and landing for the exterior lift of the entrance of planning and building is expected to begin on October 2nd. Members of the public can use the entrance located on the Harris Street side during the construction of the stairs. There will be some press releases going out on as far as how access to that facility will be going starting October 2nd. And that just about sums up our projects that we have currently going at this point. So next slide. Website. So the Workplace 2030 Communication Committee Group has begun to focus website accessibilities to forms, flyers, agendas, plans, and report documents we publish to the external and internal websites and social media. The ADA team would like to thank Michael Jolker and Kati Garardo for moving this forward. Next slide, please. Next steps. The next steps for our team are to seek out and apply for available grant and other funding opportunities. We're going to work with the Humboldt County Fair Association to develop a plan for barrier remediation out at the fairgrounds. We're going to continue moving forward with the ADA compliance plan and work on developing and updating policies and procedures relating to ADA and county programs. And we're going to continue to develop staff training to educate employees about the ADA and compliance in public areas of our buildings. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions from the board at this point? Supervisor Bohn.
Remember when I first got on the board in 2012, and they were going to shut us down, and we begged, borrowed, and did everything we could do, and it'd been being kicked down the road for how many years after that. And so I appreciate the leadership of Philip Smith-Haynes and Amy Nielsen and Alicia now with you, with the ADA team. The one consistent thing has been Our Lady in Pink. Karen has been there the whole time, I think, fighting and scratching and making people mad as hell, but getting it done. So, Karen, thank you very much. I see you're sitting there in the back row, but as Supervisor Madrone said, there are people with disabilities, until you see one having a problem getting into our courthouse or into, you know, we've done a very good job, but there's a lot of places they can't get into. I think we're making great progress. I mean, to the tune of, did you say how much we've spent so far?
Yeah,
35 million?
Let me get the exact number for you here, Supervisor Bohn, through the chair.
Yep.
21 million at the end of this year.
21 million, but it would be 35 when we're done? Is that what we're estimating? I keep hearing that 35, 37 figure.
It's going to be right around, I believe it's 49 million by the completion of the project.
And if it
today's
wouldn't
dollars.
have been kicked down the road, it would have been 18 million. So, but anyway, thanks for what you guys are doing.
Yeah, kudos. Yeah, Supervisor Arroyo.
I'm new to this role, as you know, but I've been so impressed with your small but mighty team and the incredible work that you've done. So I don't, at this time, I don't have any questions, but I did want to just echo that appreciation. And, you know, I'm looking at this list of projects, and it helps me to, you know, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in county governance to look at this list of all of our different facilities. This is really informative to me to think about our facilities work that, you know, can branch off of the work that you have been doing. But, you know, 120 plus facilities that you're working on, or projects that you're working on that pertain to access and making sure people have equitable access. So I think this is really cool, and it's a big, it's also a big civil rights issue, and I think we're, you know, addressing it head on, and I think it's a lot of cool things to be proud of, and it helps all of us advance towards a better workplace. So really a lot of the work that has been done has served everyone. So thank you so much for that.
Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you, and thank you for that update. And I know that I have made several phone calls to Karen, thank you, of concerned constituents that have had issues because of their disabilities, and your team and Karen have addressed those very quickly, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all of the updates in the Garberville area and in my district, as well as in Humboldt County. And you really don't realize how it makes you feel if you're not a disabled person, if you can't just enter a building. And over the last year, I've had some insight from constituents just on how frustrating that can be. And so I really do appreciate all the work you guys have done. And I also want to shout out to Lindsay on the efforts for the door in the supervisor's chamber, and all of that work that was done. I really appreciate that, as well as all of our staff does.
Great, all right. And with that, we'll go ahead and go to public comment unless CIO Hayes has something to say.
Yeah, I just want to show a monumental amount of appreciation for this team. They are small and mighty. They come to work every day with smiles and cheer and dedication to this work. Karen has done an excellent job from the very beginning in leading this team, and they are really dedicated to this work, and also to the departments who put up with us, grilling them about all of their ADA efforts. Sometimes they get probably rather annoyed with our ADA team, and Public Works, who works hand in hand with us in supporting these efforts as well. But yeah, I'm incredibly proud of this team, and glad that I get to work with them every day.
Well said. Okay, and with that, we'll go ahead to public comment. And starting out in Zoom, there are 5 callers there, but I do not see any hands up. So we'll go ahead and go to those here in the public. Anybody here today that would like to comment on this agenda item, please come up to the podium. Okay, I hear a lot of applause out there from everybody in regards to all the great work being done. That's how we do it for this mighty small team, but great work getting done. All right, so bringing it back to the board. Supervisor Bushnell.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the presentation.
I'll second the motion, and I'd like to speak to it.
Please, Supervisor Wilson.
You know, the ADA, the act itself was a monumental piece of legislation. Senator Bob Dole, I think, was one of the main people pushing that forward as a World War II veteran. And he spoke then about the needs with relationship to the advancements that would take place around not just, and it was referred to here just in this meeting, which is it's not just about the folks that are most immediately impacted or affected as we think about it in our able-bodied minds, but really it's beneficial to everybody. And so that, and with relationship to the workplace experience, but also just a more just society. And so I just really want to appreciate that work, and I think everyone's doing a really wonderful job. And it was bumpy and grumpy at first, for sure. Well, only because we oftentimes see things through the lens of just our county, our space, our place. But when we expand beyond that, we really see that this is important work, and you guys are doing important work. So thank you to the team.
All right. Well, we have a motion from Supervisor Bushnell and a second by Supervisor Wilson. So we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote because we do not have all of the tabs up.
Thank you, Chair Madrone. I'll start with you.
Yes.
Okay, Supervisor Arroyo,
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson,
Yep.
Supervisor Bushnell,
Yes.
and Supervisor Bohn. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Travis. Okay, with that, we have 2 items left on our agenda, and the first one is a public hearing in regards to property in Fields Landing, and the second one is a closed session item. I have been pulled, I have jury duty at 10:15, so I'm going to go ahead and pass over the gavel here to Vice Chair Supervisor Bohn to complete the meeting, and I'm going to go ahead and go downstairs and fulfill my jury duty responsibilities. So thank you all, and Supervisor Bohn, take it away.
I'd like to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair Bohn, John Ford, with the Planning and Building Department, representing the request to revoke the coastal development permit for Gerald McGuire. I'm going to share my screen. to stop sharing my screen because when I was practicing that, it didn't do that to me. Forgive me for this technical difficulty. Go ahead and try it again. I apologize for this. There we go. So the first thing I want to say is that when it comes to requesting a revocation, it's not something that we take lightly in the Planning and Building Department. It really is something that comes about as a last-ditch effort. And in this particular case, the reason that we're requesting the revocation of the CDP is because the CDP is not being used for the intended purpose. There's been a lack of construction or lack of progress towards construction of the house, which has been for over a year. And that has resulted in the site continuing to be used for a storage of basically material that is trash. And that also represents a public nuisance. So a brief history of the site is that as of, the case dates back to 2013, and as of 2019, the violations that were originally cited were that there was a structure on site that was unsafe and being occupied. The building was being modified without permits. There were inoperable vehicles being stored on the site and also on the street. And there was improper storage of solid waste. This resulted in an application for a coastal development permit to allow the house to remain. And that was denied by both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors on appeal. The request at the time from the Board of Supervisors was to allow the property owner to apply to remove the house and construct a new house so as to not be without a home. And a new coastal development permit was submitted in 2021. The application was to demolish the substandard structure that was existing there at the time and to allow construction of a new residence and garage. The demolition was completed in April of 2022. And I guess it goes without saying that that CDP was approved to allow demolition of that structure and to construct a new one. The demolition was completed in 2022. An application was submitted in January of 2022 to construct a new residence. But after construction or after demolition of the structure, the site has not been cleaned up, has gone through periods of really being, having more solid waste than at other times, but has continued to really be a public nuisance. Since the building permit was submitted in January of 2022, there have been a series of plan checks. There have been a series of corrections that have been submitted, but the result is that we have never received a set of plans that could be approved under the building code. We gave notice to the applicant that if he did not get a set of plans that could result in issuance of a building permit by this last June, that we would be taking the coastal development permit forward for revocation. In July, the applicant did submit a revised set of plans. That set of plans were different than what was submitted in the CDP. It wasn't consistent with the CDP, and it also didn't comply with zoning or building code. We've not received any response from the applicant since that time. At this point, I'm going to stop my screen share
Director Ford,
Yes.
the resubmitted plans, were they done by an architect, an engineer, or were they pencil drawings?
I believe they were done by a building designer.
Okay.
Sorry, I am having trouble getting out of my screen. What I wanted to show you was a series of pictures that would allow the board to actually see just the degree of material that's been on the site. There are some in the board report in the attachments. Do you see my screen at all?
Yeah, the cover.
I'm showing something different on my screen and still on screen share. Okay. Well, with that, I will just say that the reason we're requesting the revocation of the coastal development permit is because at this point the applicant has been unable to bring the site into a condition that is clean and tidy. It is continually full of solid waste. The applicant has indicated that much of the material that is on the site will be used as part of the construction process. The best that it can be used for is for formation of concrete, to put in concrete forms. It's not in a condition to be used for the actual construction of the building because of the condition it's in. A lot of it has nails in it, has been used before as nailed together. So based upon the fact that there has not been adequate progress towards achieving the building permit, it's been over a year in the process. The site continues to be reflective of a significant amount of solid waste. It's a public nuisance. We're bringing this forward to the Board of Supervisors asking for the permit to be revoked. And based upon that, if the revocation is granted and the site is not cleaned up, this is one of the sites that we're looking at to abate, to remove all the material from the site. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Bring it to the board.
I just didn't hear you.
Bringing it to the board, do you have any questions?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I just
Have bad hearing.
I mumble.
I do not at this time, no. Thank you for the thorough report.
Supervisor Bushnell?
So I think the applicant is in the audience, and I'm wondering if there's any, you're going to get there? I'm just wondering.
You can.
No, I just, and so you have pictures, Director Ford, but we don't have access to them?
Let me, can we see that picture?
I can see it.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is current.
This is from January
Okay.
of 2023. I've got pictures also from February, from June, and also July.
John, while you're scrolling, I'm going to go ahead.
All those pictures, they're not at current date. Everything's cleaned up. This whole situation goes back to way back when. It's been years.
Hang on a sec, Jerry.
Thank you. Hold on one second.
Sure.
John, do you have, Director Ford, do you have more current pictures?
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to look at those first.
These are pictures from July of 2023. The site does look better.
John, roll that back. Roll that one back. Okay, right there, that is, I believe, no, the yellow house there. Right there, that's to the west, I believe, and those people went in and redid 2 units, took them down and restored them completely. This has been a great detriment to their property, needless to say. And then the one to the north is a husband and wife and child, and their biggest concern is the mess, but the other thing is the fire danger. There is just an accumulation of product, I mean, right there, just of too many sources.
I can put that back up if you'd like, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. I seen enough, so thank you for that.
Sorry, continue.
Jerry, yeah, and I'm just gonna say, this is you're not number 1, but you're the second most complained piece of property I
Who's
have in
complaining?
my district.
One individual's complaining that I know of.
Jerry, I'm not gonna argue with you. You know, I've
Okay.
been down
Well,
there. I
let-
quit going down there, but go ahead. What do you got to say, Jerry?
Well, obviously, you guys aren't going to listen. You've made your decision. So at that point in time, I guess we'll just have to go to a legal aspect of it. That's not the way it is. This is definitely direct actions of code enforcement to specifically take me. And, I mean, this mess could have been cleaned up 7 years ago, but when the demo was done this last year, all that stuff would have been done. Code enforcement came down and specifically told the building department after my pre-site inspection to stop working on that property. A year went by where they literally had me where I couldn't even pick up the thing on that property. So therefore, all this mess, like I say, I mean, it could have been cleaned up 2 years ago. But with the direct action of code enforcement, which they're still doing, I can't even put anything on an empty lot, building material. I mean, that looks like a mess. It's not like that anymore. Because I finally just said, they want me to do this before you pull my license, the permits and stuff. So I go down there and I clean it up in a day. It's like I say, I know you guys have already made your decisions like you've done many times with me, and no one listens to what I have to say as far as what the violations are thrown upon me. Direct result of, quote unquote, somebody doesn't like me. Well, that mess is made. I would have had it cleaned up. I would have had it built by now, but they keep taking more issues on top of more issues as I comply with whatever they wanted to do. This building construction would have been done 2 years ago. Theoretically, I had brand new construction down there. They made me tear down my brand new permitted structure. So most of that material is from just tearing down this permitted structure that I rebuilt. And at that point in time, you got all this material in a little tiny lot. Code enforcement stopped me from doing anything. I mean, it sounds like I'm whining about this, but the truth is, it can be proven through their own actions. All this here mess, it's not me. It's not my fault. There's no organic material down there that's dangerous to anything. There's wood. There's brand new lumber. There's brand new material to build, and they've stopped me in any kind of construction effort to get any of this stuff cleaned up to a point where I mean, the foundation, I had a pre-site, the foundation's already there. I was ready to pour cement almost. Code enforcement came down and told the building department to tell me to stop. He tells me I can go ahead and finish cleaning up. They come down there and specifically tell him to tell me to stop. So at that point in time, after these years of fighting this, not letting me build anything, the construction was already permitted. And then, like I said, they revoked this permit because they're making mistakes or they're just implying certain things. But to you guys, I mean, it looks horrible. Let's face it, it looks horrible. There's no trucks, there's no equipment down there, there's no vehicles down there. It's all been taken away. There's no boats, my other lot, no boats. Anything on the road is gone. They're saying they want the sidewalks clear. The sidewalks are clean. I mean, these pictures are actually, prior to this, I mean, I was just in the middle when they tell me to stop doing stuff.
Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you, Jerry. Director Ford, so if this is, if we revoke this permit today and it looks like the site honestly needs to be cleaned up again, what happens from today?
So we will work with Mr. McGuire to either clean the site up, or this is a priority for us. This is one of the top 3 sites that we're targeting to address this year.
And Can I ask, in the past, how many times has there been action on this site?
There have been at least 3 different code enforcement cases. The most recent one was a 2019 case that I cited that went through and resulted in the application for a CDP that was denied. And then when the application was submitted to demolish the unpermitted structure that was being modified, at that point, that code enforcement case was closed. That was in April of 2022. By December of 2022, the site was a heaping pile of stuff. And so another code enforcement case was opened in 2022. And it is that code enforcement case that we now have an NOV and an notice to abate on the site, which gives us basically the authority to abate the site if need be. This is something that has been going on in our electronic records. This dates back to 2013. In our overall records, this dates back to 2004.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something?
I suggest, yeah, if you want to go follow the CEU timeline, it's lengthy. Go ahead, Jerry.
Oh, right initially, they're all saying this here unpermitted building. That's not true. This building had 3 permits on it, my structure. It was permitted, and I made specific points with the building department that the footprint was the same. They're going to remain the same footprint, which they allowed. 3 different permits. They yanked the first permit because the code enforcement took my crew and sent me out to a different project. So I stopped, and then all of a sudden the building department was saying, oh, you're not building down there. It was permitted, it was structured, it's brand new construction, the material is all brand new, up to code. Foundations are all inspected, and the next inspection would have been the framing, and the building department wouldn't even deal with it. So they keep saying it's unpermitted building. It was not unpermitted. It was permitted through the county supervisors, through the building department, through everybody. And then they said, well, you had to have a coastal permit. So then the coastal people got involved, and they said, well, you can't have this. Out of my opinion, ignorance of what they're even doing, because the bottom line is they were not aware of. I've been building things, forever, you know, and I know structure. My new construction was totally up to code. It was inspected by engineer, not by the county. That's probably why they're mad at me. But then all the material that was down there, you know, after they made me do the demo, because they keep saying unpermitted building, which I 100% disagree with because I've got the permits. At that point in time, like say, all this material comes down, it's a tiny little lot, and it made a mess for a while. You know, I was going through lumber I can't use, lumber I need to use for forms. You know, I had an A license. I understand construction. So it's just a matter of, on paper, what they're saying is not true. The pictures look horrible. They kept stopping me. I go down and clean up, they stop me. It doesn't look like that right now. You know, I mean, and then this material, they want to go down there and they want to empty my lot. They want to take away all your brand new building material, brand new construction material, and then just empty this. All this stuff, some of the stuff lying around, well, it has to be used for form. So they won't even let me put on an empty lot I own. I mean, basically, they've done the same thing with that one. Bottom line is through their own words, I can prove that all this stuff is not true. You know, I mean, and I could babble on for hours, so I'll try and stop. I have a lawyer here for the legal aspect of this, if he can talk.
Jerry, the materials that were taken off that lot, were they just moved down to the lot at the west end?
They won't allow me that. They made me take, they said that was junkyard. They made me empty that lot. It's empty, totally empty. I can't even put my boat, I can't even put a boat on a fishing port on my own property because they won't allow me. Code enforcement is that. Theoretically, they're saying if you don't have a structure there, which they tore down, you can't have anything on it.
So I'll address this to Mr. Ford. So if the site is clean and it doesn't have anything on it, it sounds like even if we say to abate it, it's going to be pretty easy because the site is clean and it's all been abated.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Can I put my material onto the other lot? then will the county allow me to do that? Because, right, it's that big old empty lot now. I got trailers full of lumber, brand new lumber ready to construct. Can I put stuff on that lot? Last time we had a meeting, you said I could use a lot as a staging area. Code enforcement wouldn't allow it. It's an empty lot at the end there. I mean, they won't even let me put a car on it. I got a trailer that's licensed on it. They're trying to say I can't even have that on it. I can pull the trailer out, and then they say, well, we didn't say that. Well, they did say that. Verbally is how I deal with people, and when they tell me something, I do what they tell me. And I've done that for all these years fighting this here situation. I mean, I don't like living like this, you know, but they won't let me, they won't just give me back my permit to continue this due to the fact that they keep adding more stuff onto it. They're saying now that you have to build a structure from 1950 has to be brought up to code when it's non-compliant structure. The engineers are going, well, we don't know about that. And I'm stuck again with not getting a permit. You know, the permit to the county says if I get a permit in my hand, then I can continue, then all this stuff stops, which is true because 90% of the material goes into new construction. You know, they said I had a junkyard. They didn't even inspect it after I cleaned it up. They just continued this here process of this prior to even, I'm in the process of trying to get a permit so I can get this thing built. So therefore my whole process is it's on stage with the building department, code enforcement, planning department. They come in there and they throw all these other stuff at you to where it just stops you. You know, at that point in time, how can you continue one thing when the other agencies are fighting you to do this, like tear down, come down there? Unfortunately, they'd probably come down and they'd take my double-story building that's being approved by the building department to leave it there. And I'm afraid they'll come in there and take that down and say, oh, we made a mistake. Because the way they've been treating me is basically prejudicially unfair. I mean, and I went through this with you guys before, years ago, and that's when they stopped me from doing anything, even cleaning up. They tell me I have to do it, but then they come down and stop me. I mean, it's nothing to clean up. They allow me to do it.
Did your engineer visit the site in 21?
Yes.
Marvin did visit the site?
The engineer is now Schneider. Because Brian didn't like, him and Marvin are fighting each other. They don't like each other or something. So he went ahead and got Schneider. Schneider comes down, looks at it, and they didn't want to approve the existing building. So that's why we went to that.
Because I'm gonna go back because I've got recollection of this. The initial building did not meet setbacks and everything else. That was part of the problem. It didn't meet setbacks. It didn't meet setbacks.
After it was approved. It was approved, permitted. I had 2 permits in my hand.
Jerry, do we have copies of those permits that are in hand?
I got plans and all that stuff.
That building was never permitted.
I know it wasn't. That's why I'm asking for the permit. I'm just, Jerry,
Okay,
I'm sorry, Jerry, I've known you for 55 years and I'm having a hard time with this, but my problem is we're back here for the 3rd time. I remember your daughter here was saying she was gonna come down and help you clean it up, just give you a little bit more time, and we've given you extensions twice. Planning and building is not giving out a permit there, I can guarantee you, because you haven't met. They did give you the permit to tear it down.
They gave me a permit to rebuild it.
The problem is, Jerry, this goes back to 2004.
When it was permitted, and then they revoked my permit, got another permit, and he's saying it wasn't permitted. I'm sorry, but I've got the stamps at home. I mean, I got the stamps at this point in time. Everything.
Do you have any paperwork to follow up with any of this?
Yes, I got all the paperwork.
Where?
Well, I didn't bring all my stack is like this. I got this.
Do you have anything?
One second.
Vice Chair, can we take a brief recess for a bathroom break? Would that be okay? And
We're going to take 5 minutes so you can get your paperwork together.
I'll make it really fast. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is just 2 separate, same plans, same footprint that was approved, that they ended up tearing down, making me tear down, and there are 2 different dates on it because I had permits twice on this project. So
Okay,
just disputing the fact that he keeps saying They tore down,
I'm looking for the approved permits is what I'm looking for, Jerry. I'm
Well,
not,
there's a
I
stamp
don't
right
deny
here.
you have plans.
no, there's a stamp on these.
There's a stamp when they receive them. That's not an approval. When they bring them in, I think you stamp everything that
All right,
comes in
well,
across the counter, right?
Yeah, I could probably find the actual permit. I mean, I don't have it with me today because I thought this would be enough to show that it's.
See, Jerry, the problem I'm having, and I don't know, I'm just 20%. I'm actually 25% right now. The problem I'm having right now is I've got a planning and building director that says you don't have permits, and you're saying you have permits somewhere.
You can call up the building department, they'll tell you I had permits.
I got them right here.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. I hate to say it, but Mr.
Okay.
Ford,
All right.
you know,
Is that, Jerry, do you,
I'd like to ask her also. I'd
okay.
like-
Supervisor Wilson, go ahead.
Me?
No, that's me, through the chair. Thank you. It seems like even if permits exist somewhere out there, this is the revocation of a coastal development permit separate from whatever those entitlements may or may not be.
Which I agree.
So I really don't think that that's germane to this discussion, whether or not those permits exist or don't exist. I'm happy to, if we can, take public comment on this so that we can get to the next phase of this discussion. Thanks.
And I fully agree with that. I was just trying to see if there was any validity to anything being said. I'll take public comment. Thanks, Jerry. I'll take public comment on this item if there's any.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. We currently have 2 callers in Zoom. The first one is 7991. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. So my name is Christy, and I'm calling to represent at least the direct neighbor. My husband and I, Rex, did mention us. My husband has been down here. We're the direct neighbor. We share a fence. We're not the yellow places. We're the greenhouse to the side. And we actually share the largest amount of property, like the line, with Mr. McGuire. We've been down here, my husband has been down here for almost a decade, 18 years. And when he first moved down here, just to give some context, that place he did not live at. He had a different place in a different area that I believe ran into similar issues. So he wasn't living here at the time. The place was nice, pristine, had the existing house on it, but other than that, it was in good shape when my husband purchased the place. And within a year or two's time, he ended up moving down here because it was one of his only options, and it slowly just started to deteriorate. I have been down here for 14 years, and since I've been down here, it has been a mess. And I feel a responsibility for the community people down here that are hardworking individuals that are just fed up and tired. And we had years and years of sympathy and understanding for him, and, you know, realized that everybody falls on hard times. And so it's not by any way a personal vendetta, but at some point we ask that the supervisors put themselves in our shoes of the individuals that have to live next to them and deal with this every day. The property has been in different states of disarray, as you guys discussed, over the courses of years. And the reality of the situation is he is really, really good at putting Band-Aids on things. And I spoke 2 years ago. I was the only one down here that spoke, and I did because I felt a need to do it and stand up for my husband, who's a hardworking person, who's deathly afraid that our house is going to set fire. He has broken our fence with the horde, and actually we put a fence out front that prevents people from coming into our property, and he said, oh, I can clean it up. He had material come through our fence, broken glass, different things that made it so we can't have our dogs on our property safely. And he said he can come fix it, and my husband gave him specific instructions not to come onto the property. At the time, I have a disability that at the time was preventing me from working.
That's 30 seconds. I'm sorry. That's your 3 minutes. But I'm going to further your statement. your husband was one of the ones right at the beginning that his fear was genuine, because I believe at the time he was leaving town for work and he was worried about the fire with your child and you at home. So that's what kind of got the ball rolling 10 years ago for me. So this is an interaction. I just wanted to follow up. But your neighbor to the west has the same complaints too. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. We now have 7718. You've been unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
This is Ken Sawatsky. I'm a licensed contractor for licensed engineering contractors. And with the testimony that has been given today, the concerns by the public, and in my opinion, some people just are not the kind of people who should be owning property. Possibly Mr. McGuire does not have the ability to do so and understand the rules we all have to abide by. So I'm strongly supporting your staff recommendation in this, and I will end that comment there. And I also wish to thank the person who took their time to call in and testify regarding this. It sounds like for the whole neighborhood. Thanks for my opportunity to speak.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Chair Bohn. We have no more callers in Zoom.
All right, is there any public comment? Thank you.
My name is Michael Acosta. I'm retained by Mr. McGuire on this matter, and I'm new to it, so I don't have all the details that some of the callers have and the history. But my first impression of the matter is that there's some truth to it. We went down there to Fields Landing, looked at it, and you can't have stuff on the sidewalk. And I told Mr. McGuire, you can't store stuff on the public sidewalk. You need to put that somewhere else. He's done so at this point. They've cleaned that portion up. That is clearly a public nuisance. Okay, beyond that, what's happening on the property is that Mr. McGuire has been frustrated in his endeavor by the building department's lack of accommodation of his plans. The plans lack an engineering certification is what they're saying. The engineer will not certify plans for an existing structure. He will not give his engineering stamp for the existing structure. I met with the staff yesterday, a planner, and he said that it comes down to this section 335-5A1A, which is the flood zone reduction code that says regarding anchoring. And anchoring must exist for all new construction, and substantial improvements shall be anchored to prevent flotation, collapse, and it goes on. It does not say in that section that an engineering stamp of approval is necessary, and that's been the holdup with the plans. Furthermore, the existing structure was exempted from the demolition permit. The county required him to demolish the two-story structure, the 2 units, but allowed him to leave the current garage there, which his plans call for the attachment to the current garage. The county is now saying he needs an engineering certification for the existing garage. Well, the county already approved of that by exempting it from the demolition. That's already been approved as to code because it was exempted from the demolition. By definition, it's been certified as to code. So there's no need for an engineering certification for the existing structure. The engineer is only willing to certify the new improvements and the new anchoring for the attachment to the existing structure. That's been the holdup on the plans, and that's what's preventing this from going forward. I think revoking the permit is probably causing further stagnation of this problem, because then what do? All you're left with is nuisance, private nuisance, public nuisance remedies. I think that it would be a step backwards. It seems the impasse is very close to breaking, and I'm cognizant of the time, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman. The impasse will be worse if you revoke the permit. We're very close to reaching an understanding with the planners about his plans, and if we have to get a new engineer, or if the county has to maybe concede that the engineering stamp isn't necessary for these plans, one way or another we'll come to an understanding pretty quickly. The plans will move forward for the new construction. So we'd ask that it not be revoked, and otherwise we'll appeal to the Coastal Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Close the public comment.
Chair, if I could.
Please.
So I'd like to respond to Mr. LaCosta. And one of the nuances about land use and building code requirements that are not often understood is that the entitlement for a coastal development permit is different than an entitlement granted under the building code for a building permit. So while the demolition was approved as a coastal development permit, that did not confer approval of a building permit. And in this particular case, what the CDP called for was to attach the existing garage to the new residence, which makes them part of the same structure. So now that existing building is now part of the new building, and so it does need to be engineered to show conformance with the building code in a flood zone. Mr. McGuire did come in with a set of plans to separate the two. The struggle is that there's not enough room to create the separation necessary between that garage and the property lines to construct the new residence and maintain adequate setbacks, both for a rear yard and a setback between the structures. That's the impasse. That it has not been conceded that existing garage does not need to comply with the building code, not under any circumstances.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I heard the word stagnation, and the original complaint on this was in 2004. Since 2012, I have had repeated complaints from neighbors, and we had the same issue, kind of got bypassed when we went through the same problem with Luke, who happened to be a friend of mine also, but whose family. And I understand, and I understand where Mr. McGuire, Jerry's coming from and stuff, but I can't, with a clean conscience, with the fire danger that is there, what can happen with all that firewood put up against the fence on two other structures that have both been redone. Both the neighbors have complained repeatedly to me, and I feel like I've failed them because this process has taken so long. And I would say, John, you and I have taken, what, 6 or 8 trips down there and repeatedly for this same reason. And I know we have a lot of guidelines to follow and everything else, but as of right now, my hands are tied where I'm going to go. So I apologize, Jerry, but I've got all those other people to worry about too. You may, Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you, Director Ford. So if the permit is revoked today, and the notice of nuisance and the abatement goes forward, in the future, can he start over the process?
Yes.
And so he would clean up and do whatever is required. No, please sit back down. I'm not speaking to you. No, please sit back down. Thank you. So the notice of abatement could be served, and then if he so chooses in the future, then he could choose to apply again and start over.
Yes, just to be clear, the notice of abatement has been served. The notice of violation has been served. So it would actually be abating the property. So either he would clean up the property or the county's in a position where it will.
Okay.
I think the question is the timeline. Will we give him 10 days? He said, I'm not looking to give a lot of time because we're going into winter. Would we give him 10 days, 14 days to clean up the property satisfactorily, which is down to basically nothing? And then he can go through the permit process again, because we're not denying that he can. It's just all this other stuff is, we've given extensions. I think we've given 2 or 3 extensions. I have the records. I have no records of permits or anything. So that's where I'm having a problem with. So do you want to break down exactly what you're going to do this afternoon if we vote today to revoke?
I think the first thing we would do is have a conversation with Mr. McGuire to find out what he intends to do. And if he intends to clean it up within a reasonable period of time, that would be within the next 30 days, we would give him the opportunity to do that. If that doesn't happen, then I think the county's in a position where it will clean it up.
Okay. Supervisor Wilson?
Thanks. I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution as seen in the attachment, which does the following: finds that the permit has been exercised contrary to the terms or conditions of approval, and that the use of which the permit has been granted has been conducted as to be a public nuisance, and revokes the coastal development permit pursuant to section 312-14 of the Humboldt County Code, and direct the clerk of the board to give notice of the decision to the appellant, the planning and building department, and any other interested party. And I'll speak to the motion if I can.
I'll second.
Okay. I think, you know, this is one of those times when we have to really seek the balance between our responsibilities to property ownership and the balance between public health and safety and the management of our public trust resources in general, as our under our obligation through our oath to the state constitution. And this is difficult for sure, because someone's really trying to make a space that we're always in a housing crisis, and we're always trying to build new housing as much as we can. But in this situation, this is obviously there are some capacity issues that need to be dealt with, and I would say that I would be amenable to the idea around, with relationship to the setbacks, although this is in the coastal zone, so it doesn't comply with the state ordinances or entitlements that come with, say, ADUs and other things like that with relationship to setbacks, so it doesn't really apply in this case. Otherwise, I think there might be some creative design solutions for multi-unit applications to this site. Be it as it may, I think this is kind of a do-over at this time. I think it needs to get cleaned up and resubmitted in a proper way. So I support this motion, although it's never fun to get to this place.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Director Ford, the fees that were associated with the permit, what were those?
It was approximately $3,100 that was part of the 2019 application, and those fees were never paid.
So he submitted a permit?
He submitted a coastal development permit application in 2019. That was ultimately denied by the Planning Commission and the board in 2021. There was a $3,100 balance on that he has refused to pay.
So he has a permit and he didn't pay any fees?
No, it was denied.
Oh.
It was denied.
This is an application for a permit.
The processing, the cost of processing the application, and that was denied, so he has refused to pay for the cost of processing the application.
So, thank you. So currently he hasn't paid any monies to the Planning and Building Department? Was there any monies accepted with the application when he submitted?
So when he resubmitted the new application, we took in money for that.
How much?
That, I don't recall, it was probably about $4,500. And that was used in processing that application. This revocation, there is no income for that. That is a cost of the permit that will be billed, but I'm not sure that we've got the money on file to assist with that.
Okay, and so the $4,500 that he paid with the application, what happens with that? Just sits there? Goes away?
Well, no, what happens is we take in a deposit.
Right.
And then we work against that deposit.
Right.
And if there's money left over, it's refunded. If there's nothing left over, or if it exceeds that, we then bill for the remainder. That's what the additional $3,000 was from the original.
So you'd utilized already that 4,500 and there
Right.
was an additional 3,100 owed?
Right.
Correct, okay, thank you.
Supervisor Wilson.
This is a follow-up in the process. Can we make sure not to have applications actually get to the planning commission that aren't fully paid? It just seems to me that nothing should be in front of the planning commission unless all invoices have been paid up to that point. As a matter of policy.
We are doing that now.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
All right. With that, are we doing roll call? Yeah. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Supervisor Michelle? Supervisor Michelle. Supervisor Bushnell, how's that?
Michelle's fine. Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Madrone is out, so motion passes 4-0.
All right. With that, I'll close the public hearing. And I will ask politely if, since he has his legal representation and we're going into closed session, I don't know if you need to have Scott with you, but do you want to, I'll take 5 minutes before we go into closed session. I'll let Scott read it, and then maybe if you want to go with John to discuss with Mr. Aguirre, since everybody's on premise, what's going to happen next. Is that legal? Or it seems that would facilitate it quicker than anything.
I will talk with John as soon as.
Great, thank you.
we go into. It is the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 and E3 in order to discuss exposure to litigation in one potential case regarding the claim for property tax refund submitted by Pacific Gas and Electric Company.
Is there any public comment on the closed session item?
I have no call. I have one caller in Zoom now. Just
Hand
raised
up.
his hand up, caller 7718.
Bring them in.
You are
Them in.
unmuted.
My understanding is PG&E is suing all kinds of counties all over the place. I say let them sue and let the courts decide whether we owe them any money. They come up, can you speak?
Thank you, caller. With that, we will go into closed session in 5 minutes. Exactly 5. Out of closed session, Mr. Miles.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bohn. The board voted unanimously with Chair Madrone absent to direct the risk manager to deny the claim for refund of property taxes levied for tax year 2018-2019 submitted by Pacific Gas and Electric Company.
Thank you. And seeing a clear indication for adjournment, we will do so. Thank you.